Teachers of Reddit, what was the best excuse for being late that turned out to be true? A kid's apartment burned down overnight. He was a little late, but still came. Now that's dedication. Now that's the parents needing to figure out shit and not wanting to have to take care of the kid for a couple of hours. Told me he got pulled over by the cops for wobbly driving on his bike and they thought he was drunk. Turned out he was just dodging all the slugs on the street. One of my organ students told me he was late arriving for his lesson because he got stuck behind a lengthy funeral procession en route to the cemetery. I knew he was telling the truth because I had played the organ for the service earlier that morning, and the church was packed. Wait, wouldn't he have still got to the lesson before you if he were at the service? No, because the student got stuck after the service, when everyone was driving from the service to the cemetery. This happened to me as a pupil. A very quiet, unassuming kid in our class came into German with about 5 minutes of the class left. We went to a Catholic school and the teachers were all quite strict and intimidating. Classes were usually silent, especially in junior school. When this boy came into class at the end of the lesson that day, the door flew inwards with such force that the teacher gave an audible gasp. It had been raining heavily outside. His hair was plastered to his forehead. His blazer was dripping and sodden. He had mud caked into his trousers up to his knees, and he was breathing heavily. The teacher exclaimed, "Brendan, what happened?" We all stared up at him in shocked silence. This quiet, unassuming little boy let out a big sigh and just said, "I took a shortcut," and went straight to his seat. That line became iconic in our school for years afterwards. I love this story. The kid came in badass. That kid had obviously been through a whole coming-of-age movie, and this was the last line before the credits rolled. I like to think he took a seat, smirked slightly, then looked straight at the camera as it faded to black. Not me, but in my class. This was in college. Student turned in work late after not showing up for 2 classes. 2 classes amounted to a full week, so it was noticeable. Professor looked at him and said, "I hope somebody died for you to be this late." Does my dad count? Quote, "Honestly, I've always heard you can hear a pin drop and never really thought anything of it. But yeah, you could hear a fucking pin cut through the air after that. Geez, teacher must have been like, ah crap. Or like, no it doesn't. F. In my hometown, if you walked into anywhere late and said the phrase, sorry, grain train, you were never challenged. It was extremely common for 50-plus carriage trains to run through the middle of town. We have the same thing in my hometown, except the bridge was up. That bridge is notorious for not following a schedule and always being up when you're in a hurry. Edit. Thanks for all the cake day wishes. Had no idea it was today. Woke up to 5k plus upvotes, which is insane because it's my most upvoted comment ever, lol. Also, the town is Aalborg in Denmark. A kid missed my first period class one morning, but was in school later that day. When I asked him why he hadn't arrived in time for my course, he said his cow was birthing its calf that morning, so he'd picked being in the barn over English. Made sense to me. His essays weren't going to win any ribbons at the county fair, but his calf could. I was late to AP Bio because my goats had kids that morning. I feel like that should have counted for my grade. Edit. Thanks for the kind words and generous awards. My bio teacher was actually a neighbor and had been by my farm before, so I of course didn't get in any trouble. It's not a farming community, though, very suburban, so I was the only one in the school that could have used the excuse. We had an exam in my class and the teacher got a message from a student saying that he was going to be late because his car had a flat tire. The student was known to party. The teacher didn't think it could be true, so as a joke the teacher asked him to bring the tire back. He brought the flat tire back in the middle of the exam. Needless to say, the professor didn't expect that. That student had been partying. Drives to school, takes off tire, punctures it, and Bob's your Auntie Mary. UK, a student couldn't submit an assignment on time as the Wi-Fi was down on the megabus. Standard, to be honest. When I was in college, my psych professor told us that the only excuse for being late was a funeral procession. Any other reason, you wouldn't be allowed to come in. A few weeks into the semester, I was headed from one building to another, which involved crossing the main road. Lo and behold, there was one very long funeral procession going by. I got a short video of it as proof, then stood on the sidewalk to let it go by. Unfortunately, the procession made me 5 minutes late to class. I knocked on the door, and the professor came over to start to tell me off. I showed her the video. Well, I'll be damned. Come on in. And then you could just save that video for any future professors like that. I apologize that I'm writing this on mobile, so there might be errors. I'm an English professor, and one year a pretty good student showed up without one of his 2 major term papers. He explained that his safe had been stolen by a contractor who was working on their house. His laptop was in the safe, and that's where his paper was. I genuinely believe him because he'd been a really good student. Then over the next few weeks, he started to show up to class looking very tired. He said that he was on a hunt for the person who stole his safe, and he was spending late nights with his cousin driving around looking for the guy because they knew his van. Now, the student and his cousin were both recently back from tours in Iraq and had seen combat experience. They wanted to find the guy to beat the shit out of him and get the safe back because his wife's wedding ring was in the safe as well as a bunch of cash. He rewrote the paper and turned it in, apologetic that it wasn't up to his usual quality. But he still kept coming to class looking like he hadn't slept. After a little while he came very happy to my office hours, and he reported that he found the guy after a long search that involved breaking into a meth den, shaking people down with baseball bats and even bribing some prostitutes. He said that they found the guy's van at a Taco Bell after getting a tip from a prostitute, and they cornered him and waited for the police to come. I read in the news that he had in fact done a citizen's arrest and stopped the guy at a Taco Bell, and that they ended up calling in the Secret Service because he used the cash that he stole from the safe to buy a bunch of counterfeiting equipment. Secret Service apparently investigates counterfeiting, so the whole investigation happened because this guy who I dubbed the White Shaft tracked the scumbag down through the bad side of town late at night to get a wedding ring, some cash, and his research paper back. It all turned out to be true. He got the ring and the laptop back. I gladly accepted his original paper, and it got a much higher grade than the rewrite. Holy fuck, there's like a whole season of a new show there, right? I had a teacher who showed up about halfway through the class. Apparently her car had slid. Intense snowstorm the night before, and she had walked the last mile or so. That's dedication to students. On the topic of dedication to students, my networking instructor once tripped on a wire, bounced their head off the floor, concussion, then finished the lesson, was gone for about a week or two, 3 or 6 classes, then came back because she was worried we were gonna fall behind with a substitute teacher. MTV paid me $50 to fill my backpack with cement and carry it around for the day. I accepted that excuse. Student later regretted it, as a replacement backpack and college textbooks far exceeded $50. But he got his moment of fame and I didn't penalize him for his tardy. Gotta live a little. Edit. Someone found a newspaper article on this. Turns out it was $200. He earned $100 for the first day and $100 when he returned the next day. I remembered $50, but it was 19 years ago. So I was right to believe him. He still lost all his stuff, thanks cement. And I remember him telling me it wasn't worth it. An edit typo. But did he have any concrete evidence? Take my stupid fucking up vote. What kind of idiot doesn't take his spokes out first? My best friend and I used to roller skate to school, and one day we both forgot to put our shoes in our backpacks. So we skated to the vice principal's office and got to skip first period to go home for shoes. We stopped at Taco Bell on the way back for breakfast, because we figured we were already excused. I had a teacher in high school that would tell us if we're gonna be late to pick up coffee because 2 minutes late is the same as 15. I was the student. My neighbor had a really social goat, and she figured out how to escape her pen in order to come over and hang out. She escaped and followed me to the bus stop, and when the bus came, she tried to follow me onto it. I couldn't actually get on the bus without her being right behind me, so I had to get off, bring her home, and call my dad to bring me to school. Edit. Spelling. My neighbor had a really social goat. It is the best thing I've read today. Thank you. Lol. I had a 6-year-old turn up late to her lesson and blurt out, "Sorry I was late. I had to color in a bunny." Quote. Seems fair. Not a teacher but a friend said his house blew away. Apparently, tornado may have been my house and took about a week off from school to help clean up my house. Literally today. Child missed my first hour class. Note said car accident on the way to school and would be coming late. Kid comes for second hour. Has pictures on his phone of the rollover accident. WTF. Kid, go home. Rest, take care of yourself. Edit. I have another one. Although this one happened to a classmate when we were in college trained to be teachers. She missed a really important class. Came for just the last 10 minutes or so because her neighbor knocked on her door while inactive labor, asking for help a little while before she was supposed to leave for class. Classmate walked back to neighbor's house with prego neighbor and delivered her baby in the living room while on the phone to 911. Paramedics came and mom and baby were fine, but classmate needed to go home and shower, change first because she was covered in blood. Not school related, but my mom was in an accident where her car rolled and got totaled on the way to work. She said the trooper who gave her a lift had never in their life had someone ask to be brought to work after a car accident. And my mom took a selfie with the trooper. She worked her whole shift. Her only complaint was her coffee spilled when the car flipped. No injuries at all. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.